All right, contestants, let's see if you are going to be smarter than a sixth grader. So you've already done the basics with writing expressions either from a phrase or writing a phrase for an expression. Now we're going to take it one step further into level 2 with more complex expressions. And with that, we're going to start with parentheses and ask this question, do parentheses matter? So when we're asking that, we're going to look at these two different expressions to get us started. Would you get the same answer for each expression? One has parentheses, one doesn't. So let's think about our order of operations here. What would you start doing for this problem? You would start with the parentheses. So you're going to do that 10 minus 3 first. However, on this one, since you don't have parentheses, you're going to focus on the multiplication first, which is the 5 times the 10. So when we look at our first steps of these two different expressions, we see that we have 5. Remember, those parentheses can also just mean multiplication when they're next to each other like that. So this means 5 times 7. Versus this one, we did the 5 times 10 to get 50, and now we're bringing that minus 3 with us. So these are going to be completely different. And when we finish it out, we're doing 5 times 7 to get 35, versus this one, we're doing 50 minus 3 to get 47. So we get completely different answers. So because of that, since you did not get the same answer, that means parentheses do matter. So let's move forward to the next part. So this is in your notes, so make sure you're getting things written down with me. So are these expressions the same? So we've got 3 versus the parentheses a minus 6, or we have 3 times a minus 6. Well, just like we proved before, I know there's a letter there now, a variable now, but these are not the same. These do not mean the same thing. Just like how it wasn't the same when we followed order of operations, they're not the same now. So when you look at the one on the left here with the parentheses, this one is saying that we're multiplying 3 by everything in the parentheses. Or we do the parentheses part first and then we're multiplying. But the point is that anything in the parentheses is eventually going to get multiplied by 3. So we have to say 3 times, and then not just the numbers, but we need to focus on either the difference since it's subtraction, or the sum if it was addition. So we're saying 3 times the whole difference, not just the number and not just 6, but the whole difference. So this one is a little different because we say 3 times the difference of, and then you can either say a and 6 or a number and 6, but that difference tells you that you're subtracting those two, and 3 times the difference shows you that you need parentheses. Okay? Versus this one on the right over here, we're only multiplying the 3 to the a, not the 6. So we want to say 3 times a number, or you can say 3 times a, and then minus 6. That's showing the separation between that 3 and the number being multiplied versus 3 being multiplied to both the number and 6. So make sure you get these phrases written down. There's a few different ways you can write these, but we're going to stick with these for the moment. Okay? So that's the difference between these. Parentheses means you need to take it times the sum or the difference, depending on what's in those parentheses, versus if no parentheses, you don't need to. So just to prove it to you, let's substitute. I know we haven't talked too much about this word yet, but let's substitute and solve. So let's pretend that a is 8, is the number 8. So if I were to substitute, right, so let's say these are my expressions now. If I solve like we showed in the beginning, okay, I'm going to do the parentheses first over here to get 2, but here I'm going to do the multiplication first to get 24. So on this one, I'm going to do 3 times 2 to get 6. On the other one, I'm going to do 24 minus 6 to get 18. I don't get the same answer, so that means these are not the same expression. These do not mean the same thing. Okay, so we just proved it to you with numbers, as well as proving it to you when we described it here. Okay, so now what I want you to do is pause the video, and I want you to try these on your own before you check with the video answers here in a second. So I want you to write a phrase for each algebraic expression. So you've got 5 parentheses y plus 2, and then 5 times y plus 2. So go ahead, and you can't use the phrases I just said because that's really not, those are just the symbols, not actually telling what the expression is. So use the example we just did before to help you out. Pause the video, see if you can do it, and I'll reveal the answers in a moment when you unpause the video. Okay, I hope you took the time to pause the video and to write your answers. But here's what I had for these. And you might have had something slightly different, but it should be pretty close to this. So the key here on the left is that it needs to be 5 times the sum. Since we have the parentheses, I'm multiplying 5 by that whole sum. And I just said of a number in 2. You might have said of y in 2 or something like that. But you had to have 5 times the sum. That's the key. Okay, versus this one I said 5 times a number because I'm just taking 5 times y. You could have said 5 times y, whatever, but you didn't need to say the sum there, but then you can say plus 2, okay, or 2 more or something like that, okay? If you need to go back and rewind, feel free. Moving on to one more example here. So now let's talk about, what about if we write an expression for the phrase? So we're given a phrase, let's write the expression. So I've got 8 less than 5 times y versus 5 times the difference of y and 8. Again, go ahead and pause your video and see if you can try these on your own first, and then I'll reveal the answers when you unpause. Go ahead and pause. All right, let's see what you came up with. So on this one, I'm noticing that it just says 5 times y, and then it says 8 less than at the beginning, and so I know that I do not need parentheses for this one. However, I did throw just a little twist in there. It says 8 less than, so that means I actually need to have something minus 8, because I'm going to have that less than 8 part. And so for that one, I did 5y, and I wrote it next to each other because it was multiplication, 5 times y. It's okay if you included the dot, just please don't use the x, it'll be confusing. But you want to somehow show 5 times y, and then minus 8. That 8 can't come first because it's 8 less than 5 times y. If it had said 8 minus, then we would have written it in order. But because of that 8 less than, the 8 had to come at the end. That was a little curveball for you. I hope you picked up on it when we've talked about that before. Versus this one said 5 times the difference. So I knew I was going to need parentheses because it wasn't just 5 times one thing, it was times multiple things. So I had 5 and then parentheses, and then since it said the difference of y and 8, I could just write that in order, y minus 8 in those parentheses. Okay? So again, if you need to go back and take a look at something, feel free. Otherwise, you have a few practice problems, just like what we did. So you can write a phrase for each expression. Remember, if the number is next to the parentheses, that just means multiplication, even if it's behind. So see if you can write a phrase for each, and then see if you can write the expression when given the phrase. Make sure you get this checked with your teacher because there is a teacher signature spot, okay? And then we'll look over for you and sign off on it so you can move on. Good luck!